And some of them were just citizens that were demanding to know, like, what's going on, what's happening in our town. Are these kids missing?
What the fuck, busybodies taking up police time because you deserve to know what's happening in your town? Okay, Karen, go fuck yourself. Really, though, fuck you to the Karens that day that were just like, oh, what's I mean, I understand. Like, yeah, you want to know what's going on, but they have shit to do.
That is so fucked up. It's fucked up. So fucked up. It is just so damn fucked up. That's fucked up.
You guys, hey, welcome back. Really more welcome back to us.
Really?
Welcome back to you.
Welcome to you, too.
Thank you so much. Really,
they have no idea what we're talking about.
I'm glad to be here. You guys, this is That's So Fucked Up, a podcast about things that make you go, ugh. So many things. And what goes next? Our names.
Our
right?
names.
Yep. We're your hosts. I'm Ashley Love Richards.
And I'm Fallon Morey.
And y'all, we were just looking at the production calendar, and oh my goodness, we haven't recorded since the end of June, which I know is, well, and then when this comes out, it's also
going to be like November.
Mid-September. Yeah. As of right now, it's August 13th. We haven't recorded in a whole month and a half.
I know.
That
I was like jonesing.
So crazy.
I started like walking around following strangers and talking to them in a,
you're like, hi, I'm Fallon Morey.
A halt.
And I'm Fallon Morey.
And I'm Fallon Morey. And talking to you in a very halting cadence, one fact at a time. Would you like to hear about the milk you're buying? How it's produced? I just needed to tell a story to somebody. And now I'm not allowed in Walmart anymore. What?
So if you guys are wondering what we've been up to in all that time, oh, well, we did the True Crime Podcast Festival in Denver, which was, the True Crime Paranormal Podcast Festival in Denver.
That's right.
Which was super fucking awesome. And Fallon came and I did a panel with Catherine Kubler and Diana Nowak from the program.
Which was so good.
It was, y'all.
So good.
Honestly, by the time this comes out, that interview will probably have been released, or that panel. I mean, it's interview style, but we did a 3-part episode. Did we cover?
Yeah, we covered the program.
Yeah. So we covered the program, Cons, Kidnapping, Cults in full. And then during the panel with Diana and Catherine for 45 more minutes, we go even deeper into everything. And I'm guessing it's been released. So,
yeah,
because now I've said that, I will have released it. So if you haven't listened, go check it out.
On the Patreon.
Well, yeah. Also, I will have put it on the regular feed by now, too.
Okay.
But speaking of Patreon, I get it, y'all. It is not in this economy. I mean, tough times out in these streets. But hey, patronage is, well, first of all, let me start by saying thank you so much to all of our patrons. Y'all are amazing, and we love you and appreciate you. And in saying that, I just jazzed the fuck up out of our merch. Like, I added stuff to levels so that there's new stuff now. At the $10 level, in addition to the tote, you either get a tote hook or a pocket knife. And I said either or because it's supposed to be the pocket knife, but I ordered them like 4 months ago and they've been stuck in customs. So we'll see about those.
I need a pocket knife because snitches be getting stitched. No, I don't know. I don't know. I just
but also how dope is the purse hook?
Oh, the purse hook is awesome. It's super high quality, very heavy, so it like stays on the table. You actually fucking put it on, unlike the shitty ones I get. As soon as you put your purse on, go thump onto the ground.
I also have a pair that I keep at my desk that I use to hang my headphones.
Yeah, I'm actually currently
multi-use.
I'm going to start using mine to hang my Crocs on. Ashley's like, give it back.
Croc Nation, sometimes, depending on the day.
Shake, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I do have 2 pairs of Crocs, but they're not the traditional ugly ones. They're called Tulums, and they're cute.
Okay.
I justify it like that. Should we go ahead and get into the fucking episode?
We should. And this one is going to make you go, ugh, because it's your favorite and unsolved.
Oh, no.
Aww.
And isn't it about kids?
Yeah, but it doesn't get graphic about kids or descriptions of bad things happening to kids. It's just more mystery. So.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, well, you know what? TBH, I did enjoy Brian Schaefer a lot more than I was going
because
to.
you solved it, right? Is that
Yeah,
why?
Yeah, because I solved it. I did, you guys. He got I Know What You Did Last Summer. Definitely, he was walking home on the side of the street. Some drunk college kids leaving the bar hit him, and then, they didn't want to ruin their lives, so they hit him. Also, one of our patrons, who was it? I'd love to give them a shout out because they had a great theory too. I don't remember who. Sorry, I love you.
Was it in the Patreon?
Probably.
I can look it up really quick. Hold up.
They said that they think it was an escalator accident and the owner didn't want to be liable, so they hit it, the body.
Oh.
Brian's body.
Yeah, my theory. Brendan. It was Brendan.
Brendan
said, my theory is an escalator accident happened and the owner found him and hit him in the maintenance area till the escalator under everyone left and then cleaned it up to avoid getting sued for over serving alcohol.
Yes. See, I think that's a good theory. Shout out, Brendan. Also, another something that I can't remember who, but shout out to one of our listeners because we are talking on Instagram and they fucking... Did you know that I Know What You Did Last Summer is a book?
Yes. I read it before I saw the movie when I was a kid. It was out in like 1980 something.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Well, because I'm old as fuck.
She reads that in her high school class. She has her fucking students read that. And I'm like, what? I didn't get to read that shit in high school.
I think I did.
And I said I wanted to make a special podcast episode for her high school class.
That would be really cool with no swearing. So a script, clearly.
Ooh. Hi, message me. We totally talked on Instagram.
Yeah.
Obviously for a while for me to find all of this out and to volunteer to do an episode because I just thought that sounded so fun. And we still have to do our kid-friendly episode.
I know.
We're really going to do it.
My kids keep asking. And I was like, well,
we have to.
Mama's going to get some of the swear words out of her mouth and then we can try to record something about dinosaurs or aliens. Let's get into today's episode, which is about the Beaumont children. This is an old cold case too. It's 1966. And basically in January of 1966, 3 kids went to the beach, walked out of the beach, and were never seen again. Just poof. So let me tell you all about the Beaumont children. The story really starts with...
Tell me about it, stud. Sorry,
oh my gosh.
Too.
We've taken a lot of long car trips lately, and we've been listening to things like the Grease Mega Mix and singing songs in my car with my husband and me and our kids. We've listened to that probably 4 times.
Okay, well, I just got dumped a couple weeks ago, so that's how cute my life is.
Well, I didn't.
You're like, oh, we're just adorable. We're like the fucking Brady Bunch.
I didn't mean it like that.
Woo woo. You guys, it's okay. I'm okay. I've been crying for like 2 weeks straight, but I'm like doing pretty good now.
But if it makes you feel better, yesterday my son farted in a closet and then opened the door for me to have it as a present. It's not always cute.
It does make me feel a little better because that's funny. No, but so really, stud, tell me about it.
Okay. So this all begins with Grant and Nancy Beaumont. Grant went by Jim, actually. So Jim and Nancy Beaumont got married in December of 1955. They met at a bar and just sort of fell in love, got engaged after 6 weeks of dating. Jim was a former serviceman and taxi driver. The night he met Nancy, there's an interview of him being like, I had a really lucky night gambling, and then I met this beautiful woman, and sort of went from there. They had 3 children. Their oldest, Jane, was born 9 months after the couple was married. And then they had another little girl called, it's really Arnna, but sounds like Anna when the Australian people in the videos pronounce it. But we're going to say Arnna.
Oh, is this in Australia?
Yeah, in Australia.
Oh, we so rarely have Australian cases. Hey, g'day to our Australian listeners.
I think once before I tried to do that and I felt so offensive.
G'day, mates. I won't go further than that. No, we have some Australian listeners, though, and again, drawing blanks on their names, but there's one, and I love her so much. She sent us the most Australian fucking message I've ever heard recently. She said something about frothing for our show, which is
nice.
Such Aussie lingo. I was just like, oh, that's amazing.
Well, I have one really close friend in Australia, and I love her. She always has the best expressions. And then my kids watch a lot of Bluey, which I'm sure every parent plus our Australian listeners will get.
Sent me a video about empathy from Bluey once, and I was like, that's really well explained.
It's deep.
Oh no, it was about when you need alone time. That's what it was.
When you need
it was
20 minutes.
Needing alone time. And I was like, wow, they did that well. Oh my gosh. So these people,
they have 3 little kids.
He starts off having the luckiest night of his life, and then it ends in them losing all 3 of their fucking kids at once.
Basically. But I can tell the details if you. Okay. So at the time of their disappearance, all 3 kids had short brown cropped hair, and one of the documentarians were like, yeah, probably a result of their mother trying like the at-home hairdresser thing, which was not successful.
Were they all bowl cuts?
Yeah, they were all like short little cropped, not quite bowl cuts, but there's a picture of them.
It started with a bowl, though, just to get shape and length.
Right. The kids grew up in a place called Somerton Park in South Australia. It's a suburb of a place called Adelaide. In Australia, in the summer especially, which is our winter, temperatures get absolutely scorching hot and dry. So people like to go to the beach regularly. Lucky for the Beaumonts, they lived very close to the beach. It was a place called Glenelg Beach, which was a fairly busy location. But at the time, of course, people viewed the world very differently. In 1960, like, kids could run around and play, and I don't think there was the same sense of danger. So overall, this was regarded as a super safe place and a safe town for young kids to travel alone.
You know what's interesting, though? I feel like during the 70s, it was still kids playing outside and all that. But the 70s was peak serial killer time.
Well, you sort of start to see that serial killers and then locking it down, right? Like, as time goes by, I think.
Yeah,
after
but
mid-70s,
like,
people are like, settle down.
When did they really start locking it down, though? Because I was a latchkey kid in the 90s, and I don't think I was alone. And I grew up
similar.
playing outside till the streetlights came on. So I think it was like in the 2000s when the internet technology became a bigger part of people's lives. I feel like that's
when you can search.
That's when people started. Yes. That's a good point. People had access to more information all of a sudden. They're like, oh, it's fucked. I don't know.
Right. Maybe. So the Beaumont children loved to go to the beach often and spend the day there. They could meet with their friends. They could listen to music. They were super comfortable even with the bus routes. They didn't even need their parents to drive them. The oldest was actually really good at just jumping on a bus with their siblings and cruising around and finding where they needed to go. The day before they went missing, their dad had actually dropped them off the beach because it was too hot for them to walk or wait for the bus. So the day before, when he dropped them off, he then left for what was supposed to be a 3-day sales trip to a place called Snowtown, which was 300 miles north of Adelaide. He was basically traveling salesman at that point, not a taxi driver. He sold towels, bed sheets, all kinds of stuff. But to them, this was just a typical day. Go to the beach, spend a couple hours, come home. The night their dad dropped them off, they returned home with 0 issues. But then the next day was a different story. I'm going to talk about kind of the day and how it unfolded. And some of it's from investigations later, because it just makes the most sense that way with like what the kids' movements were throughout the day as it was reported by different sources. And that'll sort of get us into, you know, where the mystery kicks off. January 26th, 1966, the kids asked mom if they could go down to the beach and take the bus. It was a ridiculously hot day, so it was too hot for them to walk. It was about a 5-minute ride from their house, so their mother gave them money for bus fare and a small lunch. This is actually a really important detail later, and I'll get into why. So they didn't have much money on them, like just barely enough to have like a small meal and get to and from the beach. The kids caught the 8:45 a.m. bus, and their mother expected them to return by noon. In one of the documentaries I watched, Jenny Muirhead, who was the oldest Jane's best friend, she was interviewed as an adult later and said Jane was amazing. She was able to easily travel around by bus on her own. She was super responsible. She had gone with all the other children to the beach on numerous occasions. On that particular day, she decided to stay home. And so she wasn't with the 3 Beaumont children. Basically, a lot of the sources say sort of at this time, like we were talking about, kids kind of went anywhere and everywhere. It was considered a very innocent time. Them going on their own was not weird. I would never send my 7 and 8-year-old on a public city bus down to the beach, but
well, you're a true crime podcaster in 2024 in the United States. It's a little different than Australia in the 60s.
Right, exactly. So it's so different. One man said, yeah, we all did it. The rule was, as you just said, it's funny because it's in my notes, was be home before the streetlights go on.
Yeah. Or like when they do. Well, yeah, for me, it was.
At some point, the kids got out of the water and they went up onto this area that was like a grassy area near the beach, and they put their towels into sort of like this secluded little corner. They went over, there were some sprinklers in this kind of park area where they were in, so they went over to play in some sprinklers. And there was an elderly couple nearby who reported this all to police later, who said there was also a man who was laying nearby where the kids were playing. He was in his bathing clothes with his regular clothes up on a park bench, and he was just staring at the kids. The man had already been there before the kids got there, so there was a lot of questions like, was this coincidence? Was he just like a weird dude and the kids happened to show up and he was watching them? Again, a lot of these details are what people have not confessed, but been interviewed about and been put together. So this person quickly became obviously the top suspect in the case, but he was completely unknown. They didn't know his identity. There are 1 or 2 documentaries in particular that have one pretty strong suspect in mind for who this guy was, which we'll get into later. But basically, this was a tall, slender guy. He had light brown hair. He was in his mid-30s. But for a long time, the news outlets reported that he was a blonde guy. And so for weeks and weeks after the kids disappeared, police were like chasing the wrong direction because they got the description wrong.
Oh, no.
But the people who were at the park that day and saw the kids playing described him correctly. They said, you know, what was weird is, so his shirt and pants are on the park bench and he's laying there in his bathing suit, but there's no sign of a wallet anywhere, like money or ID, anything, or even like a bag to carry his stuff. So it's pretty weird. He must be traveling super light, which probably means he either lives very, very close and doesn't need that stuff, or he wants to be able to pick up and go quick. Then the kids stop playing in the sprinkler and kind of go over to him and start playing with him.
Oh, no.
Like they knew him. They said they had walked over to him and they started to kind of laugh and chat with him. He didn't appear to have been at the beach in the water. So like, why was he here in the first place? They said that, you know, the kids were like flicking their towels at him and just kind of laughing and giggling with him. The children seemed very comfortable with him. The witnesses said it wasn't like some scary guy. It seemed like somebody they knew pretty well. They didn't appear to be in danger. So nobody intervened.
It usually is somebody that the victim knows, usually.
But of course, given the climate at the time, people were like, okay, the kids obviously don't appear in danger. He didn't beckon them over. They're not going to jump in if the kids look fine. You know, it's a calmer time. There's some
and he could be a fucking uncle or whatever.
Right. They don't know.
Yeah.
There's some conjecture now that the case has happened that maybe because they had been to the beach the day before and frequently went on their own, that maybe they deliberately put their towels near him because they had arranged to meet him there or something at some point. Maybe he was a common acquaintance they had from their other times at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
The couple who's sitting there gets approached by the guy who says, "Have you seen someone messing with our clothes, or have you had any money taken?" And people suspect this was him trying to establish, maybe in front of the kids, he has no money, and also they had money that was taken. They think that maybe as like a power move, he grabbed the wallet that Jane Beaumont had with her with their return money in it and was like hiding it somehow, basically to be like, uh-oh, we don't have money. What are we going to do now? Thus making the kids like reliant on him to find a way home.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, wait, we don't have money, but you know what? Come with me. I can make sure you
I'll
get
walk
money
you home.
to go home.
Right.
The people around noticed that just after 12, the kids started to get changed, meaning just pull stuff over their bathing suits, and the man picks up his stuff. But then, oddly enough, the man starts to help them get dressed. Jane and Arnna are old enough to dress themselves, but all they're doing is putting clothes on top of their bathing suits. So why is he like physically assisting these kids in getting dressed?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a criminologist interviewed that said this is kind of a power move. He's bold enough to do this in this public place, planning to maybe take the kids, and he's just kind of showing off. I'm in charge here. Like, I'm helping them.
Well, yeah, I mean, that also shows a sense of familiarity, probably, right?
Right.
This weird man wouldn't be openly touching children in public that he didn't know, surely.
But because there was this weird familiarity that appeared between them, it was interesting because a while back, the kids had made a comment to their parents. At one point, Arnna told their mother that Jane had found a boyfriend down at the beach. And Nancy thought, okay, they just made another kid friend, right? And nothing, no big deal. Like, she's just teasing her sister, and thought it was a big joke. But now there's a lot of speculation. Do they mean they befriended this older potential predator that they were regularly meeting, that they developed this familiarity with?
Right.
He disappears into like a building or something to get dressed, and the kids wait for him. And then they all leave that area together. So the people who are in that area see them all leave together. And then a shopkeeper at a local bakery called Wenzel's Bakery said around 12:25, Jane bought a bunch of stuff, enough for 6 people. It was interesting because she had a £1 note, which is a lot of money in 1966, and no little kid would be walking around flashing a £1 note. That would be like a kid walking in and being like, here's 50 for my McDonald's hamburger when they were 8, right?
Right.
Where did this even the teenagers working at the bakery that day were like, where did she get this money? They were frequent customers at that bakery to get lunch when they were at the beach. And so the lady who worked there knew everyone's order, and they ordered a meat pie, and that's not something they ever ordered. And Jane supposedly said, oh, it's for another man. So she was ordering lunch kind of for everybody. And what some speculate is because it was just her by herself, maybe he gives her this money, sees, okay, if I send her out to the store and I ask her to do something for me to see if she will listen to me, she comes back, then I, get these 3 kids for whatever I'm trying to do. And if not, then I'm out of buck.
Mm-hmm.
After Jane leaves the bakery, the kids are never seen again. And they were carrying a lot of stuff with them, a book bag, a couple of towels, a coin purse, some books, and none of their stuff was ever seen either, not even one possession. So it was like they disappeared into thin air.
Mm.
Nancy expected them to be back around 1 p.m., so she goes to the bus stop to greet them, and it slowly ticks through 1:30, 2. Her friends are like, they got, my kids do this all the time. They got held up. They're probably with their friends, and they lost track. But then Jim returns home from his trip he was on around 3, and she is already distraught and says, kids are missing. We got to find them. So Jim immediately drives to the beach, spends a few hours looking for them around the streets where they lived. But the beach is jam-packed full of people. And one reporter that did an investigation said it was a very popular spot. So around 4 to 5, like you could not pick out 3 kids from the beach full of people. So he wouldn't maybe have been able to find them even if they were there. After a few hours of searching, they went to the police station to report the disappearance around 5 p.m. It kind of becomes pandemonium after that. The policeman who's on duty then, his name is Mostyn Matters. Actually, he was a detective. He assumed the kids were just not returning on time like everybody else did. But then when he went to the Beaumont's house and he realized they still hadn't come back, they just kind of go hog wild. They start sending patrol cars around the streets with, I guess they sold speakers on them and you could blast like a message out of them. They had a picture on the news. The radio had bulletins out within the same night. And then because Jim Beaumont had been a taxi driver, the taxi union heard of it and started driving around in their taxis looking for the kids.
Wow. That's a big search. That's a big search effort and pretty quickly too.
And that doesn't usually often happen. Like we always see it, oh, we'll just wait it out and then we'll do some patrols. But the whole town was like, all right, we're doing it.
And in the United States, a lot of states have rules, right? Like you can't report somebody missing for 24 hours. Or is that not true?
I see different reports because sometimes I'll see we can't report them missing for 24 hours, but then sometimes I see cops and stuff on threads and Reddit or whatever going like, that's not true. It's just that there's only so much you can do within the first 24 hours. I don't know.
Okay, so if you're ever, hopefully not, but ever in the situation where you find a loved one missing, please don't go on what I said about you might have to wait 24 hours. I would say just report it right away and see what happens.
Yeah. If that were my kids, I'd be there in minutes, probably.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be here in 5 minutes. I'm going to the police station. They're not early. I'm going to be here.
If you're not early, you're late.
By 7 p.m., Nancy Beaumont was so upset she had to be sedated. Mr. Beaumont continued to search until 11 p.m. with the cops and then spent the rest of the night out on his own. They also, at some point, posted a $250 reward to the public for anyone with information that could lead to the kids' discovery. The detectives who were basically going to work on this case get to the station that night, and they basically camp out in the station knowing it's going to get crazy. And they said in the morning after the disappearance, so January 27th, there was a line of people, basically mostly media, wrapped out the door of the police station and around the entire block, waiting to get in and have their questions answered. And some of them were just citizens that were demanding to know, like, what's going on? What's happening in our town? Are these kids missing?
What the fuck, busybodies taking up police time because you deserve to know what's happening in your town? Okay, Karen, go fuck yourself. Really, though, fuck you to the Karens that day that were just like, oh, what's I mean, I understand. Like, yeah, you want to know what's going on, but they have shit to do.
Yeah, I think maybe some of it, to play like devil's advocate, maybe some of it was worried parents that are like, is there something crazy about happening in our town? Is something happening to kids now? Or maybe some of it is busybodies, but a large number of the people in that line were media. The media, of course, like they irresponsibly do, allegedly, immediately grabs a wrong description of the suspect from the beach and says it's a bleach. It goes from him having blonde parted hair to him being blonde surfer type to him being bleach blonde hair, and all these sensationalism headlines. And the headlines at the time were like sex pervert, child pervert, all these, you know, it's a sex crime. And there was no evidence of that. The police station had one phone line and 2 typewriters as its equipment. That was it. All interviews with anyone had to be written down, typed up, and then discussed and corroborated against each other, and then filed in a box. Like, that was their system for organizing info. No computers. Long way from having that capability. No fingerprinting.
It's so crazy to me that crimes ever used to get solved. It's fucking wild that detectives were that good.
Right. I mean,
that they could just use clues and such? Like, what?
Clues and stuff? The police believed in 3 possibilities based on sort of the way interviews were going and their initial just theories. The first was that the kids had been kidnapped. Of course, that's going to be at the top of everyone's mind. Basically, because of the details that came out about who the kids were seen with, that quickly became a more prominent theory. The thoughts by the media and that were being sensationalized by the media were that it was a sex offender. There was no evidence of this. It was just the first headlines that came out. The children's parents continued to maintain that regardless of what people are saying, it was very strange that their kids would walk away with someone that they did not know willingly without making a fuss. They described all their kids, especially their oldest, of being shy. They said investigators suggested to them what we talked about before. Maybe they had found someone that they built trust with during visits to the beach, and then they walked away with them willingly. The detectives tried to reassert to the media, hey, the dude had brown hair, not blonde hair, but it got buried in like a page 4 article, so no one ever paid attention. So they kept finding suspect after suspect that was blonde, and that was the whole reason they were a suspect, because it was a blonde guy.
Ugh, that is terrible.
One documentarian made a really interesting point and said, hey, at the time, nobody was looking at your every person. They weren't looking at local clergy or local businessmen, your neighbor, the lady down the street, somebody's dad, the coach of the soccer team. They were looking for this weird, psychotic child kidnapper with bleached blonde hair. You know, they're looking for this villain archetype. They're not thinking that it could be just somebody in the community, because people couldn't believe could just be like a normal guy, which is interesting because now we think of all those people first. Who knew them? Maybe it was the priest. Maybe it was the neighbor. Maybe it was the husband.
Mm-hmm.
The other theories, one was that they were just hiding, which people are like, that's stupid. Why would they still be hiding? They had a good family life. They weren't abused. Dumb. There was nothing to hide from. Or maybe they were hiding if someone had chased them. They found somewhere to burrow and hide. They could have suffered some catastrophe. They did live near a beach and there were sand dunes and sand hills. And they thought, okay, they went to the beach. Maybe they drowned, or maybe they went into a collapsed sand dune. But they said, no, the kids were seen out of the water, like at the end of their time down at the beach. And so it's unlikely that they drowned. Jane's best friend said she was a smart girl. If she needed help, she would have run and found someone to help them. She wouldn't have just been hiding in a sand dune somewhere.
Well, didn't multiple eyewitnesses also see them leave with this man?
Yeah, at least 2 at the park, 2 couples. So at least 4 people at the little area of the park by the beach. And then all of the people in the shop reported the weird buying food for 6 people, paying with the
So
euro
why
note.
are they entertaining sand dune theories and whatnot?
Because I think this is while this is all still building, right? They start out with
Okay.
these 3 theories: a kidnapping, they're hiding, or something happened to them. And as they're pursuing these theories, the first one is building up as they get calls. But remember, they have to wait for a phone call to come into their one telephone, record it, and then later compare people's stories against each other, because they have to corroborate every piece by hand,
Right.
which is just wild. Like you said, how did it ever get solved?
Yeah. Well, it didn't. Not this case.
Right. There is a really interesting documentary I was watching where they systematically go to the person they think is the most likely suspect. They're basically like, case closed on this guy. And they make a pretty compelling argument, but there's never been a for sure decision on that by authority. So there was also no crime scene because there was no proof that anything happened. There was no computers to give information. They take all of the reports they're getting in, and then obviously things the media has sort of poisoned the reports they're getting. So they build this not profile picture? No. Police sketch, there we go, of a guy with blonde hair, brushed back, early to late 30s or 40s, wearing blue bathing shorts. He may have with him a pants, shirt, and a beach towel, like just, carrying it around for days at a time.
He just always has that. That's just what he always carries
like
around.
The characters in a show with the stick with the little bundle on the back. Just he has his pants just like hanging off the stick behind him. Oh, it's him! Get him! He's tall and thin with an athletic build. For a while, people were sort of cutting down the sketch, saying they couldn't use him to identify the man because the sketch artist was drunk when he drew it. But then the police The policemen were like, no, that's the sketch. Based on the information, the sketch artist was not drunk. People are wild. Police organized a search. They basically covered everywhere. So they cover the beach. They cover all the sand dunes, thinking, okay, if they made themselves a little sand cave, that we would find them if something happened and it collapsed on them. It was the largest search to that point in South Australian history, a largest person search. It expanded quickly to all the nearby buildings, downtown, all the way back to where the Beaumonts lived. Police knocked on doors from the beach all the way to the Beaumont's house and asked every single person about the kids. There was no trace of the kids since then, physical or otherwise. And the ones that they did find that gave them information or made willing statements, they compiled and gave the details we knew from earlier. Mm-hmm. All airport, rail lines, and interstate roads were being monitored pretty constantly. And based on a trafficking situation, tips were pouring in. There was only 4 people at the whole police station to take care of incoming tips, and they were getting, thousands of them a week.
Oh my God. That would be so
they basically just said they were clutching at straws. It wasn't organized in any way it should have been, is what the police officer or the police detective said later. He said, but there was no way we could have interviewed everyone showing up to get interviewed. Like, we were interviewing thousands of people with 4 people to interview them. They looked in the drain lines and sewers and didn't find the kids. A couple days later, a woman told police she had spoken with 3 children who looked similar to them near a boat haven around the day they disappeared. So people drained the boat haven. I guess it's like a marina. They drained the whole thing, but the kids were not there.
Wow.
Mr. Beaumont visited the police station every day for months and eventually every week. And then he and his wife decided to go pack up and go to the countryside to escape the madness when nothing came of it.
Oh my gosh.
But like we do today in my favorite, in October of 1966, they were like, okay, we need to renew interest in this case. So they brought in a Dutch psychic, because that's obviously where you go.
Everybody knows Dutch psychics are the best.
The way that they pronounce it in the video is like croissant, but it's Gerard Crosset. He was brought to Australia to assist in the search in November of that year. Supposedly, he was supposed to be this big deal. Like, I've found lots of missing cases, lots of missing people. But then later they found out he had a hit rate of about 50%, which means no different than if you or I sat here and guessed or flipped a coin. That was his success rate. He wasn't able to find anything consistent. Big surprise. Every day that they interviewed him, he changed his story. He had no physical evidence. He eventually said the children are buried in this park that's in a factory in an old warehouse kiln. So the owners didn't want them digging in their factory, but eventually they raised $40,000 to have the building demolished and then excavated, and there were no remains of the children on the grounds. They checked 30 years later, and there were still no remains.
Psychics who prey on families and people who are suffering greatly because their fucking people are missing.
Ugh.
That is so fucked up.
Oh, we need an episode about it. Here's looking at you, Sylvia Brown.
Yeah, I immediately started thinking, there's like a bunch of modern fucks like this.
For sure. So there were a couple other sightings of the kids over the next year. One notable situation happened several months after they went missing. A woman reported that the night of the disappearance, she saw a man accompanied by 2 girls and a boy entering a neighboring house that she thought was empty. Later, she saw the boy walking along a nearby sidewalk by himself. He was then chased and caught by the man he was seen with earlier. The next morning, the house was deserted again, and she never saw the children after that. But police couldn't figure out why she didn't call this information in sooner. So it was the next year. She was like, oh, by the way, last year, the day the kids disappeared, I saw them being chased down the street by this man. Kids that look just like them.
Oh, by the way.
I mean, I don't have her exact transcript, but it's sort of that vibe, right?
No, that's what I was saying. It's like just agreeing with the vibe and like, what?
Yeah. And so the info was given so late that there was no point investigating that house because somebody else, I think, lived in it by then. But she didn't report it till over a year later. So that very well could have been the man with the Beaumont children. But we'll never know.
Fuck that bitch, dude.
One of the most notable, what they thought were leads, were these things called the I can't say this word. Hold on. I'm going to try to do it. Dandenong letters. And this happened 2 years after the kids went missing. The Beaumont parents were sent 2 letters with a postmark from a place called Dandenong, Victoria. One was supposedly written by Jane, and the other one was written by the man who was supposedly keeping the children. And in Jane's letter, she said that, you know, they're being treated well. She wasn't scared or anything. The other kids send their love. And, oh, by the way, the man is going to deliver us back to you at this post office in this town called Dandenong, which was about 30 kilometers south of Melbourne, at a designated meeting time and date.
Do you know if the handwriting looked like hers?
Yeah, so that was the weird thing is, you know, Mr. Beaumont got to see it and compared it to a bunch of her old writings and was like, this looks exactly like Jane's handwriting. And he turned it over to the police and showed their expert who was like, oh, wow, this looks a lot like her writing. Even the way she was saying certain phrases in the letters looked similar to her, you know, the way she had talked.
Mm-hmm.
So they really thought, okay, these could be authentic. But the only weird thing in the letters was that the name of her sister was misspelled. It was spelled as Anna, the traditional spelling of Anna, but it was Arnna. So that was the only weird thing. The letter from this mysterious man said that he had appointed himself the kids' guardian, but he was willing to give them back and established a meeting spot for them to get their kids back. At this point, a detective had taken over named Sam Swain. He had sort of organized for himself and the Beaumonts without his supervisor's permission to go to this meeting with this mysterious man. This detective had basically, from what I've watched, decided, okay, I'm here now. I'm going to be the one that solves this case, whatever it takes. That was his obsession. They go out to this motel in this town. The person who owned the motel looked at Mrs. Beaumont and goes, oh, I know you. I've seen you on the news. And then he sees a police detective with him. So this hotel owner goes and calls all the newspapers, calls the local police, who are like, what are they doing here? There must be something going on with the Beaumont children. So now they're setting up this like sting operation. The Beaumonts are waiting at this post office for this mysterious guy and their kids. The detective standing on the corner, I guess, not looking shady, dressed incognito, but probably obvious. And all these reporters are like hidden in the doors and stuff, waiting for something to happen.
Like wearing fucking bushes and shit.
Right. They're in like a cardboard tree from a high school play.
This seems bad, though, because that would probably, if this was true, make the perpetrator nervous. Like, oh, fuck, I'm not going over there.
Amazing you say that, because the guy at the motel or at the post office gets a call that says, is Mr. Beaumont out there? The guy is on the phone and he says that he's going to be there shortly, but he's running late. Okay, you kidnapped kids 2 years ago and you got other shit to do that morning, a couple errands to run.
You know what? I hit traffic.
Like, this is part of my day, but this is not my whole day, right? Then the man calls back 2 hours later and says, Grant isn't feeling well right now, so I'll be there later. At this point, Mr. Beaumont starts to realize that this return of his kids is not happening. They blame themselves for being duped by the letters. They go back to Adelaide. At some point, they get another letter that says it's from Jane saying the man noticed the detective, so he decided that he was going to keep the children and not give them back because they had betrayed his trust. And then they didn't receive any more letters after that.
Dude.
They get back to near Adelaide. I know.
Either way, if that is the actual case, or if this is some fucking prankster motherfucker.
Which is what it was, unfortunately.
Those, you know what?
But they didn't find out
those people
until
who
1992.
Do that, y'all have a very fucking special place in hell. Whatever, if any kind of hell exists, people who fucking prank parents of missing children, I hope you go to the worst lair and get tortured for eternity. That's almost as fucking bad. That's
right. As kidnapping
fucking
them.
awful, dude. Ugh.
Because you made those parents think for probably 30 years that they almost had their kids back and you missed them. They screwed it up somehow.
That's the emotional fucking psychological damage that would do. Just, oh my God.
It's wild. They discovered in 1992 with fingerprint technology that the letters were written by who was a 40-year-old man at that point, but had sent the letters when he was a teenager as a joke. He thought it would be funny. But this was sort of the end for the particular investigator, the Beaumont children, because the papers tore him apart when he got home. He got in trouble by his supervisor for setting this up. He eventually retired and he went into being a private detective and continued to investigate the Beaumont children. His family said he became so obsessed with the case that it destroyed his relationship with his wife and his children. And basically, that's all he did forever.
I could imagine that as a detective, having particular cases that just fucking haunt you, that you're like, I need to solve this shit. I feel like that's that movie or that TV character exists a lot, you know, the detective who's an alcoholic who doesn't have any relationships because they're so...
Yeah, they're haunted by the ghost of like that one case.
Just from being a fucking homicide detective. And I feel like that character is a trope because it's probably a very real person.
Right. A conglomerate of a lot of real people. Yeah. Let's talk about the potential suspects. So this first one, I'm going to mention this one first because I've seen at least one documentary that makes a very strong case for this guy. And then I'll kind of nail the other ones. No, I'll lay out the other ones. I can't use words today. The first person who was kind of a big suspect was named Harry Phipps. He was kind of a local rich guy. He owned a very successful factory, and he was considered to be a member of the social elite. He was according to one of the detectives at the time, a shocking match to the picture that was drawn in the police sketch, like a dead ringer for the police sketch.
Right, but wasn't the police sketch with blonde hair?
Right. But even when you take away the blonde hair, the rest of the facial features, and you put back in the brown parted hair that the guy actually had that they were with, dead ringer. There was a book that was published called The Satin Man, Uncovering the Mystery of the Missing Beaumont Children. The whole book lays this guy out as a suspect. And they didn't actually name him, but his own son, his estranged son, came out in 2013 and named his father as the person referred to in the book.
Does he think it's his dad?
I think so.
Oh.
Yeah, I think he suspects. So he resembled the same characteristics of the man seen with the children at the beach. He had the brown hair. He had the same very sharp features, athletic build at the time. He was also very wealthy and known to just like hand out those £1 notes to people that the kids were paying for their lunch with. So that was like something he did. According to some people, he was alleged to be a pedophile. There's no documentation that that's necessarily true, but that was what people alleged at the time. He only lived about 300 meters away from the beach. He lived in a really nearby neighborhood. Hayden, who is his estranged son, was 15 years old at the time and claimed that he had seen the children in his father's backyard on January 26th. So he came out later and said, yeah, I remember seeing those kids in Dad's backyard, like in the fenced-in yard. Two other people who were in their teens at the time, even today, say they were paid by Phipps the weekend that the children went missing to dig holes in his factory, like the backyard of his factory. They called what they dug grave-sized holes. They weren't giving any reasoning for the holes to be dug. They were just asked to dig 3 small rectangular holes, like 3 days after the kids went missing.
That are just like, like 6 feet-ish deep.
But then in November 2013, after all this came out, they excavated the factory. They did find one small anomaly in the factory in the soil, but it wasn't anything important, and they didn't find any physical evidence relating to the case. They followed up 5 years later, and they got the same results, like animal bones, but nothing else. So he is sort of like one of the strongest suspects just because he lived so close to the beach. He looked just like the picture, and all these weird happenstances. Oh, by the way, these kids were in my dad's fucking backyard.
I saw them, and it's that guy that y'all are talking about, my dad.
And that's what they think. He could have easily taken them back there to his house and then sent Jane back out with the $1, the £1 note or whatever to go get the food and then bring it back to them to see if she would be compliant with his demands. There's another suspect named This is quite a name. Bevan Spencer von Einem.
Wow. Yeah.
This guy had also lived in Adelaide. He was sentenced to life in prison in 1984 for murdering the teenage son of an Adelaide radio personality named Richard Kelvin. He was also considered a major suspect at the time in 4 other young men's murders. And while they were bringing charges to him, a mysterious informant named Mr. B came kind of out of the woodwork with details about that case, but also said that von Einem had boasted to him about taking 3 children from the beach several years earlier. However, they never found any other evidence to corroborate this story, that it was this guy. He did match kind of the description of the mystery man from the day that they disappeared. So he sort of matched the description of the guy, except he had blonde hair. He was often known to go to the beach and that he was drawn to children in maybe an inappropriate way. However, he was much younger than the man the children supposedly left with. And he also seemed to have, like, since he had been convicted of violent crimes, he seemed to have more of an attraction to teenage kids. And as you and I have seen on the cases, is like people typically have a like a type.
But these were kids, not teenagers.
Right. The kid he killed and the ones he was accused of maybe killing were all teenagers. So the Beaumonts were younger.
A pedophile is somebody who likes children. I believe a hebephile is who likes prepubescent.
Hebephile. Mm-hmm.
And then there's ebephile that likes teenagers, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Nice.
Yes. So he sort of is like a weird boogeyman character. Like, he's never been fully ruled out. There are some websites that say he's the best suspect out there because he's got blonde hair. But then if you go back to the whole, well, he didn't actually have blonde hair, then that's like the whole grounds for suspecting him. Some sources say he was a member of a high-profile secret gentleman's club that got away with murders of children all the time beyond the Beaumonts. And then another rumor was that he took the Beaumont children and performed scientific experiments on them. Nothing in those statements has ever been proven. He's just some weird, like boogeyman that people think might be associated. And then there's a bunch of other suspects, but most of them have no connection at the end of the day. There's one other notable one named Arthur Stanley Brown, who was charged in 1998 for the murders of his sisters in 1970. He was also suspected in the murder of his first wife, but later on, when he was finally charged, he already was older, he had dementia, and died in 2002, so he was never convicted of any of them. But he kind of matched the description for the Beaumont suspect. He didn't have any employment paperwork that would have placed him where they could try to place him where he lived during the time of the Beaumont kids' disappearance. But he did work for a government job. So they think that if he did have some connection, he could have gone in and destroyed all the records. But they think he was too old maybe to be the one who abducted the Beaumonts. So he was really one of the only other notable ones.
I like the first guy.
Yeah,
I like him for it, as detectives would say.
Yeah, so the rest of there's a lot of suspects out there. If you dig into Reddit holes in this one, you will go down many, many, many pathways. So Reddit's loose out there. Don't at me. Like, I know you all have your favorite suspect.
They're like, you didn't mention John Henry III.
The other names of suspects are James Ryan O'Neill, Derek Ernest Percy, Alan Anthony Monroe. Those are the other major suspects. But all of them all end in the same way. He kind of looked like the guy, but he was too old or he was too young.
Yeah.
Right. Or there was nothing physically tying him there, but it was happenstance because he lived there at the time and they thought he murdered another kid. It was all like based on things the person had done, like kidnap a child.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the legacy, the kids still have never been found. There was that book published recently, and I saw a documentary, I think, that was done by one of the authors or somebody who worked on that book. They provided a lot of that detail in that book to people and went with that first suspect. You know, you said he seems to be the most, I don't know, likely.
Likable for the crime?
Not likable, but
no,
likely.
I just think it's funny that detectives will say, yeah, I like him for this.
Yeah, I enjoy him committing this murder.
I enjoy him for this crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny.
You're right. Weird turn of phrase. Grant Beaumont, Mr. Beaumont, became super introspective. He kind of wasn't very sociable after that. People who lived in that suburb, in that area, said the suburb was kind of never the same after that. It was sort of the end of that area's innocence until the next generation or two passed out of that suburb. It really didn't get back to normal, quote unquote, whatever that was for them for many years, because there was a lot of fear and a lot of, understandably, paranoia. Nancy Beaumont separated from her husband during the case in 1966. They remained friends and continued to talk about the case. She moved over to a side street in Glen Elk. She didn't want to be in the house the kids had lived in, but she said she didn't want to be too far away from where they were last seen. One of the documentaries said that she had a little pub she liked to go to, and she'd have a beer over, definitely her right. But when she'd have too many beers, they would just let her sleep upstairs.
Dude, I don't know how you would go on. I don't know.
I also don't. Yeah, I don't know how you would.
I don't have fucking
to exist.
kids, but I can only imagine it's the absolute worst thing that could happen to a human.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I'm
breakups
sure.
are fucking hard. And
Right.
that's not something that fucking came out of you. And often they're not, vanished off the fucking face of the earth. Ugh.
Yeah.
And not knowing the not
Right.
knowing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. For me, I was able to tell this story because, well, I wouldn't have told a story about gratuitous kid violence or like a bad ending. But for me, maybe they're out there somewhere and they're all, I don't know, 60 years old, and they'll see this and be like, oh, shoot, not this. Any of the many documentaries, you can always hold out hope. I was able to do this one because there is no definitive answer, having kids myself. But I think that's it. It's like the not knowing would just eat away at you forever because you don't know.
What if this? What if
Right.
that? What if they're still alive? What if they got tortured to death? What if,
What
gosh.
if they were right down the
And
street?
all three of your fucking kids, it's not even one or two of them.
It's
all of them.
on one day.
I don't.
Which, and I'm sure at the time, I'm sure that they also kind of look back now with a different lens on and go, I should have never let them go. But it was not weird to let the kids go at that time. That wasn't against the norm. Every other kid at the beach was down there unsupervised by themselves, having ridden the bus down. They weren't
Right.
weird for having done this. She did obviously hope her children would return her entire life, but the first detective who worked on the case that we mentioned, he and his wife visited her when she moved into a nursing home. She had made friends with his wife before her kids had even gone missing. And she still wore a locket with a children's picture in it. But they said that she actually seemed to be in a much better place. She was arriving at the end of her life in like a place of peace. So that's good. Finally was able to get peace with it, which is,
Yeah.
I guess the best you can hope for. She passed away at the age of 92.
Oh my God. You have that happen to you and then you have to live that fucking long? Fuck me. Jesus.
And I think she was only, I don't know, 20 something when they went missing.
You only have to go through like 70 years of pain. That's fine. What? Fuck.
Yeah. So people have continued to investigate forever. Reddit has a long, long rabbit hole on it. I don't go there. I don't go there anymore.
I don't go to Reddit. It scares me.
It's a scary place.
It can't be.
For many reasons. Mr. Beaumont passed away on April 9th, 2023. He was 97. And he also stayed in Adelaide, the same town, till he passed away.
Wait, they both
Lived into their
lived
90s.
the longest fucking lives possible? Oh my God. Ugh.
Like I said, there are a lot of theories out there. Don't smack me if I didn't tell you your favorite one today. But
Smack my bitch up.
And Ashley's encouraging that you smack.
On the fire starter. On the fire starter.
Anyway.
We'll end on that note because that was the peppiest thing that's been said or done this whole... That was the first fucking time I sang the episode.
I know.
Episode.
Right. I mean, no, you
Oh my
sang
goodness.
at like 3:40. You sang a nonsense song. Does it not count if it's not like a real song?
Oh, no, I sung a sentence. You're right.
Because I was going to make a comment and go, ooh, we're at 3:48 and you've already got your first song out. But maybe it doesn't count if it's not like based on
No, I think it counts.
On a real song.
So, yeah, we only had 2 musical acts this episode. But I think, it's just cases that involve children are always a little bit more serious. It's not usually super easy to find places where humor is appropriate. Not that humor is appropriate for any of the shit that we talk about. It's just, it's kind of how we cope with it. They're like, yeah, we're listening. We know.
But this one is, I guess, for the, true crime, aficionados out there. This is definitely one of probably the most famous unsolved cases that I've seen out there, especially because it's 3 kids, like a puff of smoke, and no more details after that.
Yeah, and I mean, what's wild too is that it was 3 kids. That's a lot of people to fucking hide
with no trace ever.
Well, listen, I didn't solve that. Like, I don't have I like the first guy for it, but I don't have any super strong theories. So
I like the first guy for it.
You guys let us know who you like. Just tell us who your crushes are.
Like.
I mean, like,
who do you like?
We like you. So hopefully you like us too. And if you do, please consider giving us 5 stars and leaving us a review. We had some really nice reviews in July because I told people, please leave a review because it's my birthday. So twisted your nipples. And we got some really, really nice ones. So thank you guys so much. And that was real as fuck, Fallon.
Yeah, and real fucked up. Sorry.
Ugh. See you guys next time. Ugh. Bye.
Bye.
Bum 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 bum. That's fucked up. So fucked up. Can't you see? It's just really fucked. That's fucked up.